where you believe that if you don't attain certain things by a certain age, or if you don't have certain material things, or you aren't doing certain things, or you aren't in a certain place in your life, you are failing, you are behind. And that shifts your focus from what God is needing you to be doing to what the world says you should be doing. Do you actually love your job? Are you actually happy in the relationships that you are in, including the one with yourself? Do you actually want all of the things you have always believed you want? Or is that just how you have been conditioned? The goalposts are always changing, especially for women, so please focus on understanding your purpose or purposes or calling or callings, and stop chasing a thing or things that are constantly changing. Do more of what makes you happy, what fulfills you, what you want to do, not what the world or society or your family wants you to do. It's very difficult to stop. So I'm aware, because I have been there, where I always felt the need to be busy. And I didn't understand, I didn't know that this stemmed from somewhere, that I had this insecurity that if I'm just sitting down and I'm not doing anything, people call me lazy, and I don't want to be called lazy, and I don't want to be perceived as lazy. Hi community, welcome back to A Cup Full. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really happy that you're here. So I have a question for you. When was the last time you truly felt fulfilled, happy, content, at peace? And I ask because in this week's episode, we're touching on whether you are truly living for you. The world is so busy, constantly moving, constantly aiming to strive, to make money, to have the right connections, have the right conversations. And as human beings, many of us have been conditioned to constantly be on the move, working hard and securing or protecting your future, especially monetarily, working hard to be accepted, needed, be the preferred choice, to be the best. And although there is nothing wrong with wanting more for yourself or wanting good things for yourself, there is a problem with doing all of that just to be like everyone else, or just doing it because someone else said you should do it. Ever since I started getting closer to God, there is this thing that has happened where the desires of my heart have changed so much. What I want for myself now is so far off from what I wanted just 10 months ago, even. I'm not even going to go back to when I was in my early 20s. I'm going to go back to as close 10 months ago. Full transparency here. I used to desire to be the star, the one in the limelight, the one most favored and highly regarded in the workplace, at home, even in my relationships. Getting the praises, getting the applause was something I not only thrived off of, but also desperately needed to feel worthy. And it has been that way from as long as I can remember. So when I was little, in primary school, I remember getting so excited seeing my dad in the front row of my merit evening ceremonies. He would applaud and be so excited and just always had this extremely proud look on his face. And in those moments, that's when I always felt most loved by him. Now, I know my dad loved me in his own way, but the love I would get from him the most was when I would achieve something academically. And that was it for me. That's how it started, and that's how it carried on for a very long time. And I would only understand later on in my life that my self-worth and value became directly tied to how much I could achieve, because my primary caregiver as a child only made me feel worthy and lovable in those moments. I listened to a podcast episode the other day. The name of the podcast is called Feel Better, Live More, where two psychologists were talking about how most people do a lot of what they do because they want to prove their worth. And it is that way because as children, their parents or guardian only made them feel loved when they worked hard, or they only loved them because of they were super smart. Working hard academically, being a good child who never spoke their mind, never spoke back, being the reason why people would always speak highly of that parent or that guardian, saying things like, you raised such a good child, and then seeing that pride on your parents' face. So, in essence, doing the most so that you get the validation and love, but not because that is something healthy or that's something that is normal that you're supposed to be getting as a human being, and you are happy to receive it in normal doses, for lack of a better way of putting it, but it is because of something that began in your childhood and made you believe that you only deserve love if you strive for or achieve excellence all the time. And something else that the one psychologist highlighted, Dr. Gabor Mate, he is an exceptional, I think he's a psychologist, but he works in the field. If he's not a psychologist, then he's a psychiatrist. But he works in the field of psychology, and he has for the last couple of decades. And he said that what is healthy and what is good for a child is for their parents to applaud them and to be excited and to show them love, even when they haven't done amazingly on a test, for example. Instead of telling your child, you're a loser or you're a failure or you could have done better here, when they've gotten 50% in a test instead of 80%, you still show them love and make them feel loved and appreciate them for putting their best foot forward either way, and making room for them to be open and to come to you with anything, and to just know that they have your love and support, whether they're doing amazing at something or whether they're not. And that's truly giving a child freedom. So I know that some of us didn't really experience that, where your parent or your primary caregiver or your parents would be supportive towards you even if you didn't do so well at school, or even if you broke a glass, for example, when you were little. And those things, even though they might seem insignificant, they are actually very significant and have shaped how a lot of adults have turned out. So, yeah, I realized not too long ago that the reason why I was always working so hard and doing the most was because that's when I felt the most loved by my primary caregiver. And that's when I would get the hugs and just, see that pride and joy on their face. So, yeah, a lot of people don't stop working hard, they don't rest, they don't lean into having bad and slow days. Everything has to happen now. The money has to be made now. And rest, for me anyways, rest was always the equivalent of laziness. But I also think it's that way for a lot of people. And again, it's just because of the way that we were conditioned or environments that we were raised in. Rest is definitely not the equivalent of laziness. So false and dangerous, because you cannot get anything done well if you don't balance things out. Another thing that's the truth is that it's not as easy as just saying, that you aren't lazy when you aren't working very hard. When you are conditioned to believe that hard work equals to acceptance, not just by your closest family members, but by the rest of the world, it can be hard to stop. Because also, it doesn't help that a lot of people are conditioned in their homes to believe that laziness is resting, or taking it slow makes you lazy. There's this stuff very seriously toxic hustle culture, where there are terms such as rest is for the weak, you will rest when you are dead, you won't get anywhere if you are resting, if you are always taking time to put your feet up. It's very difficult to stop. So I'm aware, because I have been there, where I always felt the need to be busy. And I didn't understand, I didn't know that this stemmed from somewhere, that I had this insecurity that if I'm just sitting down and I'm not doing anything, people call me lazy, and I don't want to be called lazy, and I don't want to be perceived as lazy. And then on the other hand, the world is telling you on social media, you open your apps, your social media apps, everybody's like, work hard, why are you resting? laziness won't get you anywhere. And of course, I am not saying now just put your feet up the whole time and sleep through everything. No. But what I am saying is you can definitely strive to work hard and to do your best without jeopardizing you resting, without jeopardizing your well-being and your body. Again, also rest is something that our bodies need. Rest is not a reward. Rest is not something that you should do after you've pushed yourself through the day. No, rest is something that our bodies need to function properly. So yeah, as I was saying, I am aware that it really isn't as easy as just saying, okay, I can see Tsegeto is telling me, and I can hear her perspective. She's telling me that me resting does not equate to laziness. It's something that you have been conditioned to believe, not just by your family or by your parents or by your caregivers or your guardian, but also the world is just on this really toxic hustle culture type of thing that's happening. And so it can be very difficult to get out of it. But in my case, I eventually sat down to really think. I really gave myself a chance to think. Like I said, especially when I started getting close to God, I realized that I don't actually want all of the things I used to say that I want. And these realizations or these acceptances come from just understanding where that one thing comes from. And for me, it was understanding that I was actually doing everything that I was doing because of there was this thing that started in my childhood, and that if I was going to free myself, loosen myself from it, I would need to understand and get into the habit of reinforcing the fact that I don't need to be working all the time to be worthy of love or respect or being treated with kindness or being appreciated or applauded. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be filthy rich, as the saying goes, but I do want to be comfortable financially. I don't want to be the best or be named number one in my field of work because I feel insecure when I'm not number one. Absolutely not. I want to live out the purpose or purposes that God intends for me to live. And if that puts me in a position where I become successful from that and I am labeled as number one, then great, I will embrace it. And also, I will get back to why I say purposes. So, yeah, I want to do things that are fulfilling. I want to be in relationships that are peaceful and fulfilling. I don't want to do everything, and I don't do everything because I want everything or anything actually because I want to get ahead or to get people's attention. Not anymore, anyways. I've been in a place before, like I said, where my whole identity was attached to my achievements, my work, and constantly achieving amazing because I felt that if I did, then I would be loved and heard and seen and accepted because that's just the way I was conditioned when I was small. So, yeah, I want to do the right things and do them for the right reasons. I really do not want to get to the end of my life and feel like all I did was everything for absolutely no reason. And the thing about living in the world is that there is this promise almost that the more that you do, the more you will have, and the more that you have, the happier you will be. But that is the furthest thing from the truth. And this brings very temporary joy and excitement. So things like shopping, partying, consuming copious amounts of alcohol, getting high, traveling every other month. I mean, I do want to travel, but I don't want to do it every other month. I don't want to do things without a reason, if there isn't a need. I'm not trying to do things to run away anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. Also, things can never make up for lost time. Messing up relationships that you could have nurtured, important moments that needed you to be present, the things, they won't make up for that. And again, there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, but when you start being consumed by it and you no longer even have time for yourself, your loved ones, or your actual intended purposes here on earth, then you've got to ask yourself what you are actually doing. I realized very recently that I don't have one purpose, and that's why I have referred to it as purposes. I know for a fact that God wants me and you to do various things, all which are in alignment with his plans, which is why some women can be wives, mothers, a really good friend, an amazing daughter, an incredible sister, and have great success in their work. And they can also serve at their church and be a member of their governing body at their child or children's school. They have various purposes, and when led by God, they are able to fulfill each one successfully without burning out, without feeling overwhelmed. And each one of those roles is very fulfilling to them as well. You know, I used to be so shocked when I would hear a woman or other women say things like, my calling is motherhood and homemaking. I was always just so flabbergasted, because how do you not want to make your own money, live in a high-rise building, and drive the latest Mercedes Benz? I'd always just inside, obviously, I'd never directly ask a person this, but I'd always say, how are you selling yourself short like that? But now that I am where I am with God and myself, I have a completely different perspective about it. I think also growing up and just maturing has brought me to this point. We don't all have the same callings, nor do we have the same purposes. And God will make it known to you when you are called to do something, which is why it is so unfair and disrespectful to look down on women who are homemakers and taking care of their kids full time. That is exactly what they are meant to be doing, and that is what they are called to do, and that's why they do it so well. So to each their own, really, and we also definitely need to all focus on our own businesses. That's what needs to happen. I am a friend, a daughter, a sister, a creator. I work on various other things, and one day I hope to have a family of my own. I know that no matter where God asks me to go, he will go before me. And so I know I have nothing to be afraid of, because at the end of the day, I am but a vessel, his vessel. And my priority is for his will to be done in my life and in this world. And what I don't want to do is to create obstacles for his will to be done. I love God way too much. I also respect him way too much. He has sacrificed so much for me. And I don't want it to sound like I'm saying, do this out of fear for God and no. Respect the Lord. Respect what he is asking of you. Respect that this is his world and that his will needs to be done. Like I said, I want to not stand in the Lord's way. I want what he wants for me. But also before I got here, I wanted what made me comfortable and happy. And again, there is nothing wrong with wanting more for yourself, but you always have to ask yourself what the intention behind it is and what you are willing to do to get that comfort and happiness. And then ask yourself what happens after you have what you want, what you've been chasing, what you have given up your relationships and time to yourself for, and given up taking care of your health, your physical health for. Is it going to be enough, or does the rat race continue? And I'm of the belief that it's never actually enough with human beings. That's why we need God. We are flawed. We are innately flawed. We are sinners. We are human beings. We are having a human experience. Even though we are spiritual beings, we are having a human experience. And when you don't have God, I speak for myself, when you aren't asking God to lead you, when God does not go before you, you are going to fall into multiple traps of sinning. But when you have God and you are doing things like walking in the fruit of the Spirit, like you're very intentional and you are open to listening to what God has to say, and you want him to lead you, you want him to guide you, you are surrendered to him, then you're going to find yourself in a place where you're living a much more peaceful life, where you aren't constantly chasing that bag, chasing the man, chasing the friendship, chasing things that are just not worth it, that won't be contributing to your peace, your happiness, your well-being. You just end up in a place where you're very content and you're peaceful with what you have, and you are content and peaceful with the role that the Lord plays in your life. And when you have something, it is enough. You don't feel the need to constantly be on the move and go and get more or have more. So that's why I'm always going to recommend to anyone at any point in time to really go to the Lord. I am so grateful that I understand the importance of being led by God now more than ever, because I am no longer chasing after the unnecessary, insignificant things of this world. The unnecessary and insignificant things of this world will trap you, and they will have you locked up in a prison where you believe that if you don't attain certain things by a certain age, or if you don't have certain material things, or you aren't doing certain things, or you aren't in a certain place in your life, you are failing, you are behind. And that shifts your focus from what God is needing you to be doing to what the world says you should be doing. And which one is more important? God. So yeah, I don't play like that no more. I'm terrified of falling into sin. It scares me now. It used to not matter, but now it scares me. So yeah, just give yourself to God, give your life to God, and I promise you, things are going to change. You're going to see an incredible change. I I used to really want to have money, a lot of it, and to be the best at everything. As I said, to be the star, especially when it comes to my job, the various things that I do. I still want that, right? But the intention now is to serve God, not myself. So if I'm going to be a star, it must be me showing up fully. I'm being a star at showing up fully for God, to serve Him. I no longer want to be the best at what I do because of my insecurities or this deep desire to be noticed. I used to say I want it all, but now I'm a lot more careful with what I wish for or ask for in prayer. Not wish. No, I don't wish. I pray. I am a lot more careful for what I ask for in prayer, because I understand and value that I need to want something on the basis of me being able to actually show up and get it done well, with good intentions, but most importantly, with God's go ahead, and with Him at the center, with Him at the front of it, just with Him as the focus of it and not me. Also, sometimes you will be in a position where what God wants for you is not what you want for yourself. Sometimes you will have to go through some really challenging moments where your character is being shaped. It's being chiseled to perfection. And that will probably be really hard to go through, because one thing the Lord will do is create a path that isn't the easiest or most convenient. Yeah, but the one you definitely need to walk on. And then in those moments, or in that period of time, you will have to ask Him for patience and courage, and for you to have a loving and forgiving heart, because everything will just feel very strained and chaotic, and a lot of things could possibly be happening at the same time. But yeah, you're going to have to ask Him to lead and guide you, and for Him to really help sharpen your discernment as well, and just to help you keep a good perspective, a reasonable perspective, and also to not fall into the trap of stepping back from difficulties or running away from them. I'm learning that discernment is really such an important thing, that and patience. There, those two things, actually, and obedience as well. But for the purpose of this episode, Discernment and patience are very important things to have, especially when things are slow, when things are hard, when things are very difficult, or it's quiet and it feels like you are experiencing suffering, multiple forms of suffering, all at the same time. It can be very hard to stay focused. So when an opportunity comes along or opportunities come along, it will probably be easier to say yes without discerning whether that is truly for you or not because you're hungry. But when you ask the Lord to sharpen your ability to discern, you will be able to pick up on the things or thing that is not for you. And you will be patient and will wait on what is yours. I wish I could describe it in words. I don't really know how to. I have the vocabulary, but it is such a spiritual thing that you need to experience, and it needs to be between you and God, and you need to get to that place to be able to hear what I'm saying. But God changes your heart when you move out of the way and you invite him in and you tell him or you ask him to please drive this life you are living, to please sit in the driver's seat and to always go ahead of you and to let you know whether you need to go left or right. And when you speak to him, he is going to answer you. When you open your heart to him, he is going to do that. If you go and look in the Bible, he did that with Jacob. He did that with Abraham. He did that with David. He did it with Joseph. He did it with Paul. He did it with so many people in the Bible. And he just wants you to speak to him. He just wants you to invite him in your life. So once you have given God a chance and you've made space for him in your life, I promise you, being able to discern between what is for you and what isn't will be a lot easier. And when you, for example, don't get that job or don't get that opportunity, or you are in a phase or in a place in your life where all you're hearing is no, you are going to be fine. Like, you'll feel okay. I genuinely do feel okay when I get no's, or when things are just not coming together the way I'd hoped. In my heart, I always say to myself, God knows exactly what he's doing in my life. And I'm here at this point because I've made space for him to be able to see him like that. As a kind and loving father, I've also made space to wait. I'm patient. I have a stronger sense of discernment, like much stronger than I ever have had in my life. So yeah, make space for God. I just want to say that. It's also really important to ask yourself why you are doing what you are doing, and if you actually really want to be doing any of it. Do you actually love your job? Are you actually happy in the relationships that you are in, including the one with yourself? Do you actually want all of the things you have always believed you want? Or is that just how you have been conditioned? Are you actually happy with the direction that your life is going in? Do you truly want all of the things you are pursuing in the ways that you are pursuing them? It really is very important to get into asking ourselves those kinds of questions. And maybe you won't like some of the answers, but that's okay. It just means you're going to be able to then ask yourself what it is you actually want and explore what it is you actually want. I want to remind you that you are enough. You don't have to drive yourself crazy, working yourself to the bone just because you don't feel like you are enough if you aren't doing those things. The goalposts are always changing, especially for women. So please focus on understanding your purpose or purposes or calling or callings, and stop chasing a thing or things that are constantly changing. Rest, not only because you need it, but also because you deserve it. And don't treat it as a reward of some sort. Resting is not a reward. People have died from exhaustion, guys. My mom shared a story with me about how an acquaintance's colleague was found in her car. She was found in her car in the parking lot of the workspace, and she had passed on, and the cause of death was exhaustion. So please rest. Please, you know what? The money that you are chasing is going to still be there tomorrow. The car that you want to buy, there will probably be an even better model in 5 years. So it's okay if you don't reach your goal in 2 years. You can still buy it in 5 years. There will probably be an even new and improved version of it. You don't need to wear yourself out, especially trying to acquire material, trying to look like other people, trying to be acceptable to other people. Please take care of yourselves. Not everyone will agree with this one, but that is perfectly fine. I have worked since I was 16 years old, context, different kinds of jobs, and it taught me a lot about independence and being responsible for myself. So I'm really grateful for the experiences that I've had with work. Well, not all of them, but some of them. I'm also very fortunate that I never really had any hectic responsibilities because I've had the luxury of living at home. So on the most part, I've really enjoyed working for and spending my money. But what else I can 100% positively say is that as a woman, my body is not meant to go through as much stress and pressure as it has gone through in some of these workplaces that I've worked in, especially really intense, fast-paced environments. And I say this not because I'm lazy or because I don't like to work. I really do enjoy it, especially when I'm doing something that I love. I put my all into it. But I've realized that some jobs are just way too stressful on a woman, and that there are jobs that are meant for women, and that there are jobs that are meant for men. And I said what I said. Who gonna check me?
I said what I said.
Who gonna check me, boo?
For example, I have worked in very easygoing environments where I am doing most of my work sitting down with very little stressful factors. And then I've worked in environments where I'm carrying boxes, being shouted at, running on a hamster wheel of chasing deadlines, and being underpaid. And the latter nearly made me sick because I was so stressed all the time. Which is my next point. Research shows that stress in the long term can lead to serious health problems for women. According to research, women are more likely than men to report symptoms of stress, including headaches and upset stomachs. Men are, however, more likely to develop addiction to substances to curb that stress. So they go to substances. It doesn't necessarily affect their bodies as badly as it does women. Not that stress doesn't affect them, it does, but because of we are made so differently from the brain to the hormones, women are also more likely to have mental health conditions that are made worse by stress, such as depression or anxiety. And other ways stress affects women is in the form of migraines, heart problems, obesity, problems getting pregnant, menstrual cycle problems. I really do suggest doing research and seriously looking into it, but this is where I stand with it. I will work, but some conditions just will not do it for me because my health comes first, both in the short term and long term. And overall, I think a lot of women need to be in workspaces that are not going to be too stressful on them. Yep. So yeah, do more of what makes you happy, what fulfills you, what you want to do, not what the world or society or your family wants you to do. And also be the person you actually want to be. If that is being a stay-at-home mom, looking after your home and kids while your husband is out working, then that's all good. And I know that women are cautioned against fully depending on a man financially because within the blink of an eye, he could decide he doesn't love you anymore and leave with all of his monies and belongings. And it would be unfair for me to say that this is false because so many men, we know stories, we've heard stories, we've seen the movies, we've seen the news reports, the series. There are many men who have done that to women they were married to, which is awful. But I will echo what I said in last week's episode about romantic love. If you haven't listened to it, please go back and do that. Be picky when you choose your partner. Be extremely picky. And look at his character. Ladies, please, not his performances. See the red flags for what they are and don't pretend that that isn't a real thing. When the red flags are red, they are red. See them for what they are. Don't try and see a green or a beige. Red is red. So don't pretend that that isn't a real thing when someone is showing you who they are. Actively look to be with a kind and confident man, not the cool guy who loves attention and does anything to get it. Be with someone who is content and fulfilled with what they have, but are also eagerly and intentionally working hard to go even further in life. And most importantly, seek God first, and then go and read Ephesians 5 verses 25 to 29. A man that understands what the Lord is saying in those verses understands his role in his wife and children's lives and will not leave you high and dry. A man after God's heart will take care of you as the Lord instructs him to, until you both breathe your last breath. Listen to this. Actually, let me just read it to you. You can also then go back and read it again. It says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she would be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. So a man that loves you will not do anything to hurt you. That is really all there is to it. It's not a difficult thing. It isn't an equation that needs to be solved. It's very straightforward. And that really is it. I'll repeat it. When a man seeks the Lord, when a man is after God's heart, when a man understands what the Lord asks of him as a man, he will not jeopardize it. He will not do anything to destroy it, to break it. He's going to do exactly as the Lord says. And in Ephesians 5 verses 25 to 29, it's just one book amongst many, one couple of verses amongst many in the Bible. This is what the Lord instructs a man to do, a husband. I also did highlighted in my Bible, but I also just want to highlight it, husband. So yeah, it's not that difficult. It's very, very straightforward. It took me a long time to understand that some of the things that human beings have tried to make like very complicated, that you need to play a game of hard to get, and you need to do 10 different things so that you are clear when it comes to a man, and so that he is clear when it comes to no. It's all very straightforward. It's very straightforward. And that's why you'll hear stories where some people say, this man told me on our first date that he's gonna marry me, and then a year later we got married and we've been together for this many years. So yeah, I always say that men that are good with God, men that have gotten right with God, are not men that have time to play games. They understand that they have work to do and they take it very seriously, and they will not stop doing the work that they have been tasked with doing, that they have the blessing of doing, until they breathe their last breath. And that's really it. The last thing I want to say is seek God. Pray, fast, read your Bible, go to church, have a real relationship with God above all. And don't forget how important and special you are, and that you deserve good things. You deserve to be happy and to be doing things that make you happy. And I hope that you take that seriously, and that you understand that you don't need to get into a rat race of trying to prove yourself worthy. And you don't need worldly things, earthly things, material things to be worthy. You are already worthy in the form that you are in as a human being. Okay, this is definitely where we are ending this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly do appreciate it. grateful that you got to this point in the episode. If you're wanting to put anyone on, please don't forget to let them know that they can listen to A Cupful on all listening platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and various other platforms. Just otherwise, if they are just wanting to test the waters, and if you haven't followed A Cupful on TikTok yet, please go on ahead and do that. The handle is at A Cupful Pod. I post snippets of the episodes. Have a lovely remainder of this week. Rest when you need to, work when you need to. Please be kind to yourself and be kind to other people. Rest. Take time to rest and take time to really understand whether you are doing the things that you actually want to do or not. And most importantly, keep doing the things that fill your cup.